Maury, a perfectionist, toiled and kept an ear cocked. A lit Marlboro was stuck under a string at the end of his guitar. Jim was restless. He finished tuning quickly and walked over to inspect the sandwiches donated by the Southern Hospitality Committee. The committee consisted of 2 dozen or so anxious, lush-lash sorority sisters who catered the entire NU concert series. It was their opportunity to meet and flirt with the stars. Jim picked up one of the triangular-shaped sandwiches and laughed. "Hey, Maury," he called out. "Take a look at this." He held up the white bread sandwich with the crust removed and wiggled it in Maury's direction. A toothpick attempted to secure a sliced, stuffed olive to the top. The olive dropped off. "This may be the South, but it ain't South Philly. And this sure isn't Italian bread. Don't they know it's a capital offense to cut off the crust?" He carefully replaced the delicate morsel as if it were a small wounded bird. Maury paid little attention, still fiddling with his guitar. He barely noticed that a small entourage had collected in the dressing room. It included Doug and several of his friends, mostly students. Jim wandered over, picked up his guitar, and sat down. Maury finally finished tuning. Jim strummed a few chords and began to play the old Sam Cooke tune, Chain Gang. Without looking over, Maury picked up the lead on his guitar. They entertained the private party for over half an hour with a mixture of material from slow Delta blues to English bawdy ballads. With a cigarette dangling out of the corner of his mouth, smoke rising to the ceiling, Jim treated them to the song Careful Man from his upcoming album. The lyrics go, "I don't gamble, I don't fight, I don't be hanging out in the bars at night. Yeah, I used to be a fighter, but now I'm a wiser man. I don't drink much, I don't smoke, I don't be hardly messing around with no dope. Yeah, I used to be a problem, but now I'm a careful man. But if you want to see a commotion, you should just see that man I used to be. I was trouble, perpetual motion, trouble with a capital T. Staying out late, having fun, done shot off every single shot in my gun. Yeah, I used to be a lover, but now I'm an older man." The small crowd applauded. "Thanks," he told them. "This is a lot of fun. In fact, it's my favorite part of playing." Maury looked up and brushed his shoulder-length hair. "Maybe we should pass the hat," he said, smiling. "We could use the extra change." They were interrupted by Jim's Midwest agent, Ken Cortese, who reminded them of a scheduled newspaper interview. Jim knew about the interview, but was uneasy asking the students to leave while they were enjoying the private performance. He excused himself. "Gee, I'm sorry I have to take a break now, but come on back after the show," he told the students apologetically. "I'll play some more songs for you." Jim was relieved that Ken had interrupted so he didn't have to personally cut the performance short. The students were waiting for more, and he wasn't good at refusing anyone. In his usual humble manner, Jim half bowed, shook their hands, and thanked them for listening. The interview with the reporter from the university newspaper went badly from the start. The questions were unprepared and trite in most cases. Jim gladly accommodated the press with a collection of anecdotes about his life, but this reporter seemed uninterested. Now on the edge from fatigue, Jim wasn't in a patient mood, and he answered what he perceived as inane questions with patent replies. Usually the jam sessions before the concerts relaxed him, but now the interview had made him more tense and tired than before. He cut the reporter short and walked across the empty locker room, then through the long hallway that led to the stage. Standing behind a temporary partition, he saw the audience through a blue haze of smoke and spotlights. His face fell disappointment. The 2,000-seat auditorium looked less than half full. The crowd was much smaller than the thousands he had been drawing lately. He felt a pang of guilt. Later he thought he would have to apologize to Will and Doug. He turned back to the quiet hallway to be by himself, lit another smoke, and sighed. Disappointed and exhausted, he felt like being alone. Doug and Ken Cortese appeared and interrupted him again. "Are you all right?" Doug asked. Sure, it doesn't look like I drew much of a crowd tonight." "Don't worry about it," he said, shaking his head. "It's not your fault. Who would have guessed we would have to compete with that tennis match?" Bobby Riggs, the aging tennis pro and hustler, and Billie Jean King, the top player on the women's tour, were engaged in a battle of the sexes. It was being televised that night, and 50 million people were expected to tune in. As the three men entered the dressing room, Jim did a double take at his reflection in the full-length mirror. He barely recognized himself. His hair was shaggy, his face was deeply lined, and the circles under his eyes were dark. "Jesus," he said, his jaw dropping open. I look like a scarecrow. I must weigh 120 pounds. I'm almost as skinny as Maury. Looking down, he flicked his cigarette and watched the gray and white ashes settle on the toe of his boot. He forced a grin. Man, Ingrid would hate that, he said to Doug and Ken. She would have caught the ashes with one hand and polished my boot with the other. He straightened the collar of his shirt and tried unsuccessfully to smooth out the wrinkles. Then he twisted the long ends of his unruly handlebar mustache and ran his fingers through his thick, curly hair to comb it. Jim liked to tease me about my frenetic energy and perfectionism, but he was meticulous too. Contrary to his cultivated truck driver image, it was only lately that he had become too exhausted to care about his appearance. Shit, I need to buy another shirt, he said without looking around. I should have received some of that royalty money by now, don't you think, Ken? You mean they still haven't paid you yet? Ken asked, astonished. Jim, I've told you before, you've got to look out for yourself. There are a lot of temptations in this business. The money doesn't always flow where it's supposed to. Jim knew Ken was right, but he hated confrontation. He couldn't bring himself to ask for money again. The whole financial situation left him frustrated and angry. Staring into the mirror, his mood changed abruptly. Fuck 'em, those sons of bitches. I'd like to tell them to shove this fucking business up their ass and just give me my money. Then, embarrassed by his sudden display of anger, he leaned his palms on the mirror and dropped his head. Music's my life, but damn it. I can't do this anymore. I'm killing myself, and I don't have a thing to show for it. Ken reached out and put his hand on Jim's shoulder. I've got no life, man, Jim whispered. I'm broke. My marriage is falling apart, and I miss my son. He's going to be 2 years old next week, and I've hardly seen him since he was born. Jim thought of Adrian James, AJ, dressed up in his cowboy hat and boots, riding his tired dad like a horse around the living room. Adrian James liked to strum his toy ukulele and sing Babaloo, imitating Ricky Ricardo on I Love Lucy. When Jim was on the road, Adrian James would sing to him in his tiny voice over the phone each night. It was breaking Jim's heart to be away so much, but in some ways it had become as hard to be at home as it was away. Ken was trying to think of a reply when Maury came sneezing down the hall. Ken let it go and escaped. Jim raised an eyebrow at Maury and then grinned, his mood quickly shifting again, as it often did. Maury was blowing his nose into his huge red bandana. He finished and stuffed it into his hip pocket. Maury, you look like shit, said Jim. Where's my scattergun? There must be a cat around here somewhere. Maury wasn't amused. Jim picked up his guitar and played the opening melody to the new song Maury had recently written for him called Some Surprise. Hey, I like that song, he told him. His young friend nodded his head in appreciation, but said nothing. I guess you're still pissed off. No one knows better than you just how crazy I've gotten lately. I guess I owe you some explanation. Nah, Maury said. You don't owe me anything. But you do owe it to yourself and Ingrid to take some time off, man. No shit, Jim agreed. I've definitely hit the wall this time. I've shut out Ingrid and everybody else. You need to take care of yourself, Jim, Maury said. Yeah, Jim responded, I've crossed the line and I'm not sure where to go from here, but things are going to change. I can't keep hiding. Maury offered a warm smile and spoke a line from his own song. If I lie, I lose the best part of my mind. How did you get so wise at such a young age, Jim joked. Just then Ken returned. Elliot, your road manager, just called, and you guys aren't going to like this, he told Jim and Maury. They've canceled your break again. You're booked through November. Maury froze. Jim put down his guitar and aggressively shoved it into the case. After a moment of silence, he shouted, Fuck them! They can't do that! Next week is my son's birthday, and I promised him I'd be home. I can't do this shit anymore. I'm done. That's it. I'm calling Ingrid and telling her I'm coming home. That is, if I still have a home. Ken looked at his watch and said slowly, Look, you guys, it's time for both of you to go on. Without a word, Jim picked up his guitar and walked into the hallway that led to the backstage. Maury followed. When they reached backstage, they stood together in the darkness of the wings. The comedian George Stevens was concluding his act. Will Mitchell, the committee chairman, stepped up to the microphone and announced, And now, ladies and gentlemen, the act you've all been waiting for, ABC recording artist Jim Croce. He turned and extended his arm towards Jim and Maury. The audience applauded. Stepping into the spotlight, Jim delivered his famous grin. He had a unique appearance, not classically handsome, but compelling, with features etched too big for his own face. After a few moments, the audience quieted in anticipation. Maury pressed his lips to the microphone and made the sound of a stock car revving up for the race, and the two men in perfect time played the opening lines to Rapid Roy. Oh, Rapid Roy, that stock car boy, he's too much to believe. You know he's always got an extra pack of cigarettes rolled up in his t-shirt sleeve. He got a tattoo on his arm that says baby. He got another one that just say hey. But every Sunday afternoon he's a dirt track demon in his 57 Chevrolet. Yeah, there you go. After the students' applause, Jim stepped up to the microphone. Hello out there, it's sure good to be here at Northwestern University. I've waited a long time to play this spot. You see, we've been playing some high society places like Rome, Paris, Los Angeles, New York City. He stepped back from the microphone smiling. Hisses and boos could be heard at the mention of L.A. and New York. When the jeering subsided, he began again. I know what you mean. I feel the same way. It's true. You know, you can't lose touch with the real people. He paused.